Hi everyone. Sorry I've been away, but school started and I've been absolutely swamped. Anyway, I just wanted to make some brief comments on objective purpose. Now, I hear this phrase getting thrown around a lot, but there seems to be some misunderstanding about what objective means. In the field of philosophy, objective generally means mind independent. That is to say, something that is objective is not the result of a judgment made by a conscious entity. For example, if all minds suddenly disappeared from the universe, a rock would still be a rock. Even if the word for it disappeared along with us, it would still be, objectively, what it is. That's what it means to be objective. It is an objective fact that something is what it is and it is not what it is not. Yet this definition for objective seems to put it at odds with the term purpose. You see, a purpose is a reason for which something exists. It can also be an aim or a goal. Now let me ask you, can you have an aim, a reason, or a goal without a mind? No. Then how can we have a reason for existing that is also mind independent? In other words, how can we have an objective purpose? I don't think you can have one. Because of this, I think the term objective purpose is pretty much nonsensical and contradictory. Now I can already hear some objections. Theists generally use the game designer argument, or they compare objective purpose given by God to an inventor having a purpose for his invention. Some people even use like scissors for an example. They say you could use scissors as a crude stabbing device, but that wouldn't be its objective purpose. It was intended to cut paper, so that's its objective purpose, right? Well, not exactly. According to this school of thought, the purpose was assigned by its creator. In other words, its purpose results from a judgment made by conscious beings and is therefore presumably anything that they want it to be. Let me give you an example to demonstrate how problematic this is. Let's say that the person who invented the scissors was a little off in the head. He didn't intend it to be used to cut paper. He originally intended it to be an inefficient stabbing instrument. I mean, he can assign whatever purpose he wants since he invented it, so it has to be considered the scissors' objective purpose. Now, would that mean that we would need to use scissors as a stabbing instrument in order to use it correctly? I don't think so. That whole concept seems to be the exact opposite of what objective or mind independent is supposed to be. It actually seems downright subjective, if you ask me. I mean, just look at the definition. Subjective, particular to a given person, personal, otherwise used as subjective experience. This is the mistake I think they make. You see, when they say objective purpose, what they really mean to say is original purpose. It was the original purpose of the internet to be used by only the military for a very limited set of tasks, and yet today it has become so much more than that. After all, I'm sure the original programmers did not intend for it to be used to watch videos of some smart-ass atheists arguing against the concept of objective purpose, and yet here we are. Despite all this, theists will continue to argue that a universe designed by God has a true purpose, while a universe without a God does not. When I argue that we assign our own purpose, they say that is merely subjective, and objective purpose can only be assigned by a higher being. However, what they don't realize is that they still have the same problem as atheists. They just move the problem back a step, as they often do. You see, God is not the product of a higher being. He can't be, or else he is subject to the problem of infinite regression. In a theistic worldview, God has always existed, and has no reason or cause for existing, as that would necessitate an even higher being with a cause or reason for creating him. As theoretical bullshit pointed out, God has the exact same problem that atheists are accused of having. According to the theist, if our existence came about with no reason and no cause, then how can we have an objective purpose? Similarly, let me ask, if God came about with no reason and no cause, then how can he have an objective purpose? If he assigns a purpose to himself, isn't that just as subjective? By extension, isn't the purpose he assigns to his creations also subjective, since his goals and actions are driven by his own subjective purpose? Now, some theists might try to get out of this by talking about God's nature. They might say, oh, God's nature is inherently purposeful. God's creation of human beings is necessitated by his nature and is thus not driven by a subjective purpose, and so on and so forth. Before they make that argument, though, let me ask them, just what is a nature? A nature is generally defined as the inherent character or basic constitution of a person or a thing. In other words, that's just the way it is because that's just the way it is. He has purpose because he's always had it. It's a part of what makes him who he is. There's no explanation for this. It just is the way it is. It's just the way it's always been. This cannot be proven, of course. It is simply assumed and asserted. But that fact is pretty much well hidden behind all the semantics. My last problem with the concept of objective purpose is that I don't think an externally assigned life purpose really applies to human beings. Though people can assign a purpose to a hammer or a pair of scissors, I don't think you can do that to a child, even if you are one of its parents. Just because you created it, just because you gave it life, just because it wouldn't exist without you, doesn't mean you get to determine how a child will live their lives. It's not your decision to make. Just as we expect children to choose their own destinies, I think humanity can do that for themselves. The only prerequisite for purpose is a mind, and we each have one of our own, at least I hope. To sum up, first, I think objective purpose is a contradictory and nonsensical term. You see, purpose is dependent on a mind, while objective has to be independent of a mind. Second, I think even if it existed, God would not have an objective purpose since there would be no higher being to grant him this purpose. And third, human beings can assign their own purpose. Even if you assume there is a God, you should not assume that he gave you a purpose. For all you know, he intended you to find your own purpose. And personally, I think it would be rather callous of him to hand down a purpose to us like we were non-sentient hammers and scissors or tools that were meant to be used. I just don't see the majesty of a celestial programmer inputting our function into us as if we were computers or robots. Just as we expect children to choose their own destiny, we should be able to choose our own. Thank you.